Hi there, I'm Andrew Nicholls. This is the first of two short video talks about animation writing, mostly writing comedy for animation. I've written comedy for a living for over 40 years, since high school, for TV, radio, stage, stand-ups, newspaper, comics, websites, late-night TV, sitcoms, cartoons. My ebook, Valuable Lessons, contains a chronological list of projects I've worked on, how much trouble they were, and what they paid. This book is about the craft itself. 4 dozen essays on techniques and habits of mind for writing comedy, and a little bit about each of a dozen markets and how they're best served. I've chosen here to read from the chapter on animation because it has more opportunities for amusing videos and clips and illustrations. My most recognizable animation credits would be Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius, Fairly Odd Parents, George of the Jungle, Hot Wheels Battle Force 5, and currently Barbie's Dreamhouse Adventures on Netflix. Before the writing, though, a little necessary bit about production, some knowledge of which should inform your writing. Animated TV, no surprise, must be drawn, which takes time. She crosses the room, then she says, is somebody's weekend shot to hell. Hands on her hips, she says, will make someone's life a little bit easier. If she is going to cross the room, have it be in a funny way or for a funny reason or carrying a prop. Movement alone isn't action, remember. Computer graphics have simplified the production of animated series, but not animated pilots. What you get is an economy of scale. Sets and characters are much easier to use eventually, but much harder to make in the beginning. Directors now have the ability to move within a scene with video game joystick ease, but all 3D animated characters still have to be sketched and then refined in 360-degree rotations, and then wireframed and polygoned and colored and textured, and given articulated variables like, does the cow's neck move? We discovered late in Jimmy Neutron that Carl's llamas actually couldn't sit down. There was a dream sequence in which they were sitting at the desks in Carl's classroom, and we had to rethink it and have the llamas standing. Little technical knowledge would have sped us along. Props and costumes are limited also. Everything your cartoon family lifts or moves, shifts, kicks, has a price attached to it to design it and build it. A pencil, sunglasses, a ray gun. On a staff, you would be given at the outset the number of outfits and props that the production company can afford. On Barbie, I believe the showrunner, Grant Moran, learned from Mattel on episode 10 out of 26 that we had used up nearly all the costumes for all the girls. For the season, trades had to be negotiated. I think we gave up props in exchange for more teen outfits. I think the episode A Puppy Tale worked out kind of cute if you want to check that out. For Spain's series Pumpkin Reports, we were allowed 400 props over 52 episodes. These included the alien gadgets and the kids' alien detecting and fighting mechanisms and equipment and vehicles, but also, for example, a hammer or a coffee mug, some masking tape, a piece of gum, a basketball, a pile of dirt next to hole. You burn through them pretty quickly. And except for a few primetime or streaming shows, The Simpsons, King of the Hill, Futurama, Big Mouth, animation in the U.S. tends to be non-Writers Guild. So you don't have that protection. They will pay whatever they feel like paying you. They'll put your credit on or not, or make you share the credit with somebody they know, misspell your name. There are no residuals, no pension plan, no health insurance. I've never received a copy of a finished cartoon episode after working on about 450 of them. You can investigate IATSE's local 839, theanimationguild.org, which covers artists, writers, and techs in animation, and it does have a pension plan. But be forewarned about the freewheeling attitude towards writers in animation generally. But this attitude does offer great opportunities for beginners, the same way CBC Radio in Toronto offered me and my partner a leg up when we were 19 or 20 years old, because it costs so little to hire you. People aren't as picky about giving the untested and the enthusiastic a shot. Daryl Vickers and I didn't start writing animation until we had already been writing live action for 28 years together. We've now worked on 50 different animated titles, series and pilots, on several of which I have been handed outlines and asked by a producer, hey, give this person a shot, a friend, a relative, sometimes someone in the art department once. And sure, why not? Often Unsurprisingly, this did not work out, but I have discovered some terrific writers this way and started them off on a cartoon writing careers. The average pay for a 15-minute episode is still about $3,000, so a team of two gets about $1,500 each. No residuals, as I say. A certain speed is required for cartoons when you're in production. The finished 15-minute scripts have to arrive at the rate of about 2 a week. But for the freelancers, the pressure isn't all that bad. You get about a week or 2 weeks maybe per draft, and they're only 16 pages. Usually the first or second draft only. The showrunner, story editor, they call them in animation, does the polish. Speculative animated projects do sell. You can actually pitch them live now to Adult Swim at the cost of having your embarrassing pitch aired as a program, apparently. But the bulk of new shows that get on the air do come from what is nauseatingly called IP, intellectual property. So pre-existing books, movies, shows, toys, cereals, Napoleonic Wars, flea powders. I've sold a dozen cartoon scripts, pilots based on original ideas, and some have been produced, but to date none of them have actually got on the air. Daryl Vickers and I wrote Hollywood Dog from Ron Obermeyer's cartoon strip with a cast of Mark Hamill, David Johansen, Carney Wilson, Dee Dee Rescher, William H. Macy doing the voices. A dream day in the studio, but that died at HBO when the executive who had championed the project left the network. We developed our little kid project, Rocket Ship Bedroom, for 20 years, first on our own with art by the amazing children's book and New Yorker cover artist, cartoonist Bob Stack, and then for a while at Disney, and then for a while at Universal, and in 1919 we actually got it all the way to a color animatic at Nickelodeon, and it fell out in one weekend. Too many other space shows, they said. It is a hard world out there for little non-IP things. Brand awareness holds 2 aces going into the flop. Before you consider your own spec cartoon idea, a couple of practical caveats, stuff I really wished I'd known when I'd started. In 3D, which most of you will be writing for, a character wearing a hat or in a different shirt or carrying something is a new character. If any object, like a bird landing on Dad's nose, must move extensively in synchrony with a human, it's a new design. It's back to wireframe. Seymour is not the same character as Seymour in pajamas. So there's no reason to hobble yourself over this, but be aware that a script with 6 costume changes for the lead may be a really good, funny sample, but it's not likely to get produced without major changes. If you do an animal show, nix the pigs. Pork, even talking pork, doesn't sell well in the Arab world, and your studio may need that Dubai or Qatar or Lebanon sale in order to make their budget. Limit your use of hair, fluids, and fabrics. Lakes, flags, pennants, tissues, Rapunzel outfits. Fluid motion is time-consuming, thus costly to animate. Mohawks are fine. Hats are better. They had 1 billion blades of grass in the Korean animal soccer show Dream Kicks. I don't know how that was managed. I'm sure if you look closely, it's all the same 8 blades going by. For kids animation, establish a gender and a race balance early on. I talk about this a little bit in the book in a chapter called The Character Palette. Nickelodeon and the Disney Channel in particular have large Asian and Latino audiences. Don't have the minority character be an afterthought or an occasional neighbor. This is a primary consideration now on every show. For international or syndication, no visible English language signage, no extensive wordplay. Don't show U.S. currency or flags or mailboxes. Daytime animation in particular, which has lower network license fees, the amount the network pays to air the show, becomes cost-effective really only when it can be syndicated into countries whose alphabet looks like a math seminar whiteboard. You can draw arrows on a package, but not the words "this way up." If you want to indicate the ballroom is that way, have a couple dancing. Say the icon contains a couple people dancing and an arrow. And as elsewhere, for legal reasons, no existing logos, no Ferrari logos, no Nike swoosh. Don't have the yellow and black cover of a For Dummies book. You can do all that when you get to, or if you're on Family Guy or The Simpsons. But for most kids animation, daytime animation, the lawyers seem to run the place. But these boundaries all having been noted, the joy of animation writing is, of course, the ability to draw almost anything, go almost anywhere, with the possible exception of complex emotions. You're less limited by physics, crew moves, weather, and live actors' reluctance to fall face first onto concrete. You can violate reality, do squash and stretch, quick cuts, fast forwards, rewinds. It starts raining, it stops raining. You can play 15 scenes in 60 seconds. You can flip us upside down and back again, all the way. You make the world. Animation writing is as close as you can get to directing without having to get up at 6 a.m. and drink bad crew coffee. You can mix humor, too, with the heavier genre stuff. On Disney's series Witch, I did supernatural and jokes. On Hot Wheels Battle Force 5, auto racing and jokes, without anyone ever asking to see my fantasy or my sci-fi or my automotive credentials. If you've never written suspense, getting hired on a primetime suspense show would be tricky, but you can always do a spooky, funny episode of, Three Mice on a Shovel. The chief thing is, in animation, to pack every moment. The sound and the picture. There are objects and vehicles and people in the background. Your characters can bend double. They can leap, fall, sweat profusely, snap their fingers and make things appear. Very often reach into a back pocket and produce almost anything that you can imagine. They can fall in a sewer and find an ancient cave or rub a golden lamp and be magically transported to the meatball waiting line at IKEA. Neighbors, family, or coworkers needn't exit or enter cartoon scenes with the same cute dialogue cues that are necessary in sitcom, where the audience can see the door where they came in. They can just walk in and out of frame, or hover pack in, or skateboard in, or like Inspector Gadget, rise out of a trash can or a dumpster. The directing analogy does imply some of a director's responsibility, though, on the page. If you have a health day parade, say, in the streets of Cartoonland, describe the floats the way you imagine them. Giant toothbrush, big spit basin, 12-foot carrot. Don't count on someone else filling in the details or being familiar with what health day might mean in America. Much animation is drawn in Korea, Hungary, the Philippines, and India, so it would be a 4-meter carrot. In Sweden, I learned on a show called The World of Tosh, they don't know what fire hydrants are. Their spigots are underneath the lawns. They weren't sure about ceiling fans either, or pretzels. In Spain, did you know it's Tuesday the 13th? It's unlucky, not Friday the 13th. You do a little wiki research when you do foreign country stuff. It'll stand you in good stead if you're approaching another country, particularly with a spec animated script. The frame. Be very clear about what you imagine happening in the frame. She sips the concoction and freaks. It's fine in sitcom because the actor would run with it, but in animation it needs details. Does she drop the cup? What does freaks mean? Does she spit it out? Does her face glow red? Does she sweat? Does she say anything? Freaks may not mean what you intend to a director in Bangalore. If someone leaves the scene, write it. Don't let them hang out there and have readers turning the page trying to figure out, well, is Carrie still here? If someone has no more lines, maybe move them out anyway. Keep thinking of what we are looking at. What is actually physically there? Specify your dialogue, even if it's, yeah! You're writing for a moving rectangle and deciding everything that goes into and flies out of that rectangle. Unlike with a live show where you have dressing rooms and a tech crew of 20 and child welfare officers interfering with every pesky little live firecracker scene, that colorful rectangle is all anyone connected with your show is ever going to see. I had a freelancer once hand in a first draft that started with, Ned heads on his way to school, happy that he'll be seeing Linda today. You can't draw happy that he'll be seeing Linda today. Describe what we see. Cartoons are very emotionally simple. Cartoon people seem to have giddy joy, rage, screaming terror, surprise, confusion, and sleep. Maybe lovesick. Think twice before you type, his face shows concern. If you have eyebrows, you can also show determination. Always have eyebrows. The eyes may be the window of the soul, but eyebrows are the applause signs of the head. You're even more emotionally limited with birds, animals. A lot of cartoons are animals, and particularly with robots. And even more so with the shade and rotate software called Toon Boom, which gives each character the expressiveness, as I sometimes say, of a franchise restaurant clown painted on a punching bag. See League of Super Evil or Rated A for Awesome for that kind of art. It's still computer assisted, but without the complexity and the higher budget of Pixar level animation. You can't do full rotations. You get this sort of thing like a Facebook 3D photo. Toon Boom shows like Gerald McBoing Boing that stay flat in imitation of 1960s to Patty Freeling or Jay Ward's cell animation, to my mind. They look a lot better. It's a much better and smoother use of that animation speeding software. Darryl Vickers in my first hand-drawn outing was Ned's Newt from 97 to 2000 on Fox Kids. Ned was one of our last series, alas, with real cell art. We did 2 series in early Flash, Pelswick, and Quads that were funny looking and pretty stylish, thanks in large part to John Callahan's shivery, very fractured drawings. But in the early days of more ambitious CG, the early 2000s, we found ourselves writing a lot of stuff for talking hairless spheres. See if you can find Noonbury and the Super 7. Still have no idea what that show was. While we were writing it, Darryl would occasionally look up in a daze and say, "What is this? What are we doing?" Things have got better, but if you're thinking of trying CG, and you may be shuffled into CG no matter how you imagine your script, do watch some recent programs to study the recent state of the art. Dream Kicks and Pumpkin Reports and Barbie were animated in Maya software, so it's all the same software, but they can be tweaked to different levels of action and detail. Look at the head rotations. Look at the silhouettes. Not every show gets the Pixar treatment. A girl can wear her hair in a bob, but it might not bob. One of the reasons so many kids in 3D cartoons skateboard is the difficulty of animating a bicycle. Think of the wheels rotating in one plane, and then the pedals in another, and then the chain in another. They're all on the same axis of rotation, but with 3 different axles and going at different speeds. It's tough. You can show someone freewheel to a stop or putting their bicycle down, but on it is tricky. If you're math geeky, check out prolate cycloids and discover how part of a forward-moving train is always moving backwards. That's just more trouble for animators. Your nationality can give you a boost in daytime animation because so many animated series are co-produced with other countries to lower their cost. If you have a foreign passport, you qualify as a national for the purposes of arts funding in other countries. That can be a way into selling a show or to staffing an existing show. I've got British passport and a Canadian passport, and I have managed to work under EU treaties, pre-Brexit, in Spain and France and Austria and Sweden and Germany. There are 14 countries that will give you a passport if one of your parents or grandparents, or even in some cases grandparents, were born in that other country. So long usually as that parent didn't take American citizenship before you were born. Google by descent EU for a list of countries and details. And if you have that European passport and write cartoons, even in America, they get translated into French if there's a co-producer there, you can join the Société des Artistes et Compositeurs Dramatiques, the SACD, which will collect royalties for you from the European plays of all those shows, amounting actually to more than you make for the original scripts. That money is, alas, not available in America, where the studios take the animation writer's copyright and all your repeat money, a fact that has helped finance many a drinking establishment in Hollywood. Here's the opening page from an animated movie, Casper's Scare School. Fade in, exterior Deedstown, bright and sunny, an idyllic American town. If this were live action, we would shoot it on the Back to the Future lot at Universal. Folks go about their daily business, friendly, smiling, but that's about to change. Spooky music picks up as 3 ghostly blurs stream through town. One ghostly blur is a fat blob, one's long and thin, and the third one's followed by a swarm of flies. And at the town hall, plastic letters on a board advertise, "Soccer team, softball sign-up. Movie, The Red Rooster." But the blurs fly by, whipping off the letters, so the sign now reads, "Tonight, screams of terror." I wouldn't start a TV script with half a page of scenic like this, or a tricky sight gag, or with secondary characters. Here it's Casper's uncles, but an 80-minute film does have room to ramp up. The Casper TV series that followed was made up of 52 15-minute episodes per season. With commercials, that's only 11 minutes and 35 seconds a story, so there's scant room to dither around. The main takeaway here, though, for TV is pack every moment, pack every frame with something worth drawing and worth listening to. Don't just write people talking. In a second video, I'm going to talk about writing animated TV specifically. And all of this information, plus opinion and craft and market information for TV, stage, sitcom, stand-ups, print cartoons, podcasts, late night is in my book, Comedy Writer. And check out the website, andrewnicholswrites.com. Thanks. Onward.